Delighted that Natalie is here today. Came all the way up from Bournemouth, right? Like all the way, the furthest speaker away. We actually met via Twitter, and it turned out we had a sort of kind of deep love for two things: NoCode and HubSpot. And at the time I was going down a very, very sort of deep HubSpot rabbit hole, and we got chatting, and it just seemed like there was a really good fit for talking about NoCode as an automation tool for, I'm not going to do your talk. No. Actually, I'm going to stop myself right there. But thank you so much for coming all this way. And yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ollie. Well, first of all, I would like everyone, has everyone got teas and coffees? I'd like everyone to stand up. And I kind of want everyone to give a round of applause for Ollie because he's done an amazing job today. Thank you, Ollie, for bringing us this day. I think we can agree that so far, today, it's been an amazing experience. And I'm here to talk to you about experience, specifically customer experience and automation. So before we do that, and you can do this at home, you can do this in the room, I want you to first of all relax your arms down by your sides if you can. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath in and out. And again, in and out. Now, I want you to take a moment to think about experience, the word experience. What does that even mean? What does a good experience look like to you? I want you to take a second to just think about the last experience that you had that you can say was a good experience. A good experience that was so good that you wanted to tell somebody else about it. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So I hope you have the opportunity, you can sit down as well, to think about what a good experience means to you. Now, I'm sure everybody in this room and at home, you are a customer of somebody's. You likely pay for something. So you yourself have had a customer experience. And if that customer experience was good enough, you might have told somebody else about it. So I have a confession to make. I turned up this morning and I was slightly late. And I actually spoke to Ollie and I said, Ollie, what is everybody here? What's their reason why? Why are they here today? What's their experience? What experience do they want to get? And Ollie turned around and said, well, actually, Natalie, a lot of people, they want to build MVPs. They want to build products. And I was like, shit. I designed this presentation potentially for organizations that are wanting to put automation into their existing processes. So I kind of sat away and rewrote the whole presentation so I could deliver to you the experience that I now know that you want, because Ollie kindly told me. So, question. If this clicker, So, you guys want to build a product. How many people in this room are kind of pursuing building a product, just so I can kind of like see generally in the room? Okay, I'd say that's like 80% of people. Cool. And we often get a little bit confused with what we think matters in product. Now, having worked with quite a lot of no-code founders and being a no-code founder myself, the things that we tend to think matters are making sure that our design is on trend, that we have an innovative technology stack, that we're using the latest no-code tools, that no one has ever done this before, that we're using innovation, and that we're finding the best tools to build our product with, and people say they like it. But what actually matters, in fact, is only one thing: your customer's experience of your product. It doesn't matter what you build your innovation with. It doesn't matter what you think it looks and feels like. It doesn't matter what your friends or your unpaying free users think about your product. What matters is the way in which your customers experience your product. And customers care that we, as NoCode founders, address 1, their immediate need, and 2, make them feel good. Now, I want you to reflect back onto that experience exercise we did at the beginning. Would you say that that good experience was actually something that made you feel good? Would you say it was something that addressed an immediate need that you had? Now, when we've looked at founders that have been really successful, whether that be in the no-code or the general product space, they've always been customer obsessed. I mean, Steve Jobs is a great example of somebody who was completely obsessed with customers and their experience. Because if your product does not solve a customer's need and it doesn't make them feel good, why would they tell anyone else about it? And why would they come back? And why would they spend their money on your product? So no-code automation has the power to change customer experience. Now, I say change customer experience because with great power comes great responsibility. And you have to be aware that if you are automating things, you need to yield your automation power wisely. And to do this, what we have done is we have built a CX-focused automation framework, which what we do is we help founders and organizations apply this in their business. Now, we're going to go through this in more details, and I'm sure you'll have access to the slides afterwards, but do feel free to tweet them. That is also welcome. So, when you are designing automations for customer experience, the most important thing is at every single moment in time, you keep the customers in mind. You're not designing your automations to show off a really fancy workflow to tweet and show off to your friends. You are designing your automations with only one reason: to make the customer experience better so they talk positively about your product, share it with others, and hopefully spend more of their time or money with you. So you have a choice. You can be like Thanos and give people an experience that is not particularly great. Or you can be like Iron Man, wielding your power for the greater good. So let's go through this framework in a little bit more detail. Before you start building any sort of customer experience automations, you need to firstly define what success means. Now, you might have seen this comment start with why. If anyone is familiar with Simon Sinek, we have adapted it from there, the golden circle. And I'm sort of like in agreement with Simon Sinek in many reasons. Like, we do need to start with why. Like, why are we considering building automations for our customer experience? But what I don't necessarily agree with is, does it have to be the why, our why? Well, surely the only person's why that should really matter is, guess who? The customers. Like, why are we building this automation? Because we want to help the customer better achieve their why. So we need to understand what their why is. So I want you to think about, when you start hearing this whole start with why, I need you to question, is this my why that I should really be focusing on? Or is it in fact my customers? Should we instead be thinking about why we are automating to help our customers achieve their why? But for the sake of this presentation, I would like to give you some suggested customer experience baseline metrics that you could use within your organization to help understand if your automations are truly improving your customer experience. Now, we always recommend that you go with 2 types of success metrics, both objective and subjective. We seem to live in this world in which everybody is obsessed with data metrics, numbers, whole figures that we can somehow as human beings understand. A lot of the time what people forget is that semantics matter. Natural language matters. Understanding the input of customer reviews, what people are saying about your brand on Twitter, what people are saying about your product to other people. That sort of context matters. So before designing any sort of customer experience automation, pick 1 or 2 objective measures and 1 or 2 subjective measures and create some baselines. If nobody is talking about your product on any social media tool, that's at least a good metric to start with to say, we don't get anybody talking about our product. What can we do to change that? Because more people talk about your product, the network effect occurs, more people download your product and use your product, etc., etc. But it does matter if it's positive, not negative. So the next thing is to map existing operations. Now, this depends on where you are within your business. You might have 0 operations right now, so this might not be 100% applicable to you, but you might have some operations that are currently existing within your business. Now, this is to map the existing processes, not the future processes. So why do we map existing operations? Well, as Bill Gates said, is the first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. However, the second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify inefficiencies. I think it's really important we think about this because there is nothing worse than building an automation for a process that doesn't work. So to do this, what I tend to do is use a tool like Creately, where I try and map out as much information about the operations as I possibly can. Now, here what you can see is a sales automation. This is an example that existed in an organization that I worked with recently. Now, at the top, I get to use the laser. We can see the customer experience at a high level. In the middle, we can see the employee experience at a high level. And at the bottom, we can see the data that's collected about the customer and the flow in which that occurs throughout the journey. And then at the tools, we can see the general infrastructure that allows this customer experience to happen and this employee experience and the data capture. So when you're mapping customer experiences, try and think about mapping them on multiple levels, on your customer experience level, on your employee experience level, and also on your data flow level. So you can understand as well the technology stacks that are required to deliver that customer experience. So once you've done that, we need to identify the need because despite what everybody thinks, not everything should be automated. There are still times in which automation isn't great. I don't know if any of you guys use LinkedIn, but the automation of messages that comes through often in my inbox there is never a great experience. So it's important to know when to automate and when not to automate. So now you have your original map. A really simple thing to do is to go along and look at the employee experience and think, what's high value that requires a human being? And actually, what's low value? So we can see here within this sales process that attending a call, that would be considered high value. That's the point in which somebody is going to maybe talk about your service. And it doesn't matter if, right now computers aren't able to have that conversation with people. So you're definitely going to need a person with that. Also, I've highlighted here a follow-up email. The reason why I don't recommend that people automate their follow-up emails following a call is that one email should be tailored 100% to the conversations you have just had on that call, because that's what's going to build the real relationships. Things like reviewing contracts, you're going to want somebody who is a human being to kind of look over that at least. And invoices, checking over that, you're going to need a human being probably looking at that. And I very much compare this to that whole model of having a pilot in a plane where autopilot exists. Yes, you have autopilot doing some of the operations within the plane. In fact, it takes over quite a lot of them. but you still want a human being to be there to make those critical decisions when they really matter. So I don't believe that we should rid all of our processes from people, but we should release them from the tasks which they don't need to do to provide a good customer experience. So you can see here, we have needs that are in gray. And these tend to be related to processing data, moving data from one platform to another, logging information, things that computers are actually much better at than people. So once we've identified a need, we design the solution. And it might be that you don't want to focus on every single part of your business that has a need right now. Maybe you prioritize one part of the marketing funnel, the sales funnel, the success experience. And you think, okay, well, what part of that do we, one, know that works, and two, has administrative processes that do not require a human being? Now, if you don't know if it works yet, you do risk automating something that doesn't work if you automate it. Just bear that in mind. So, designing the solution. You can see here what I've done is I've effectively taken out all of those gray boxes, and I have added an icon, which for now is HubSpot, for all of the workflows that I'm going to put in place. Still, I need to make sure that the data is correct and that the customer experience remains the same. So you can see how that's narrowed down. This is a lot less complex here. And everything else can be automated. So now we've designed the solution. Despite the fact you saw me with maybe a few different tech stacks there, it is important. It's only at this point when you've designed the solution that you consider which technologies are best. Now, there are so many no-code tools out there, specifically for automation or for sales or for marketing. There are thousands and thousands of different technologies. So until you've gone through that process of understanding, first of all, the success, what are you trying to work towards, what the needs are within your organization, and the solution that you want to develop, at that point, you now have a list of requirements. The next question is, which solution can do it best? Now, for me, in marketing and sales and customer experience, I tend to use HubSpot. Now, for those people who aren't familiar with HubSpot, HubSpot is a platform in which brings together marketing, sales, success, customer relationship management, as well as their new CMS. They've also recently launched an operations hub, which acts very similarly to Zapier and Integromat, in which you can plug tools into HubSpot directly. Now, the reason why I like using HubSpot, it provides one single view of every single customer that works with your tools, with your product. I really think we need to move away from using this word user. The only other industry in which the word user is used is the illicit drug industry. We don't want to be seeing our users like that. Your users are your customers, and they should be treated as precious customers. And we should have a good understanding of exactly what their individual needs are. And the only way to do that is to collate all their data in one place so you can have a nice catalog of all the interactions with the customer. And as you can see here, this is just a demo version of an account in which you can see the videos, the form submissions. If you add connections into your app specifically, you can look at maybe when their status changed in your app from when they first logged in to maybe when they created their profile to maybe when they did a search on your app, if you then start integrating those sorts of properties into HubSpot. What this means as well is that your marketing, sales, success, product, and accounts team can all be aligned on the lifestyle changes of that customer from one single source of truth. You don't have distributed systems where data is siloed, it's all together. So other fun things that you can do with HubSpot is things like, for example, track the process through sales. Now, this tool is particularly used with B2B software. So if you are working on B2B tools in which you're dealing with large organizations and want to take a more account-based marketing and sales approach, you can actually use this tool to look at when did the lead come in? When is that lead then turned into somebody who's had a demo of your product? When did that turn into the first time that they used? When did that turn into the first time in which you generated revenue from them? And you can move them along systems like this, either with your sales operations team moving them, or in fact, what you can do is you can trigger automations in which when a customer behaves a certain way on your platform, it automatically moves them to the next stage. So these are just some amazing things you can do with the tools. And you can look at the data related to the way in which your customers are moving through your apps or products by using funnels, deal stage funnels, and also lots of other reports that come built in native with HubSpot. And look, there is an integration between Bubble and HubSpot. Now, there is a NoCode Zapier integration, but there is also both Bubble and HubSpot have open APIs. So if you do want to experiment with a low-code point of view, you can just build into both of these and pretty much build out whatever you like. But just to give you an idea of the tools that are currently available for your marketing, sales, success, data, all those sorts of things on the market, there's a lot. If you guys are interested in learning more, I would highly recommend following chiefmartech.com. Scott Brinker, who is, I believe, the head of product at HubSpot, posts some amazing blogs and looks very specifically about the future of data ops and how we're going to have to be moving away from purely focusing on big data into how do we actually connect this data of customers across all of our platforms so that our sales, marketing, product, success, and accounts team have the information they need at the right time to make critical business decisions. So, following doing all of that is really about implementing the technologies in line with your success metrics and making sure that they are documented. This is something that I've experienced over and over again when working particularly with scale-ups. In a startup, it's different. When you're a solo founder or you have a team of 2 or 3 of you, you can document things. You kind of understand how to read each other's code. Yes, you're in a messy room, like Niall said, but you're kind of in each other's mess. You know how to deal with the mess, and you kind of clean up after each other. Whereas when your team starts expanding, and you don't know which automations are on Zapier, which automations are on Integromat, which automations are on workflows on HubSpot, which automations have been built on NAN. All of a sudden, someone comes in and builds a new workflow, which interrupts the flow of your other automations, and guess what happens? The customer experience is affected. So I am really, really pro on documenting all automations. And the reason why I suggest at the minute going back at the beginning and doing a lot of planning and logging is if you did those first stages right in planning your automation and you implemented what you planned, you've done your documentation already. But it is key for success in the future. And then training and support. If you're implementing a new tool into your organization, whether it be HubSpot, which is a massive tool which connects distributed organization departments, or whether you're using a new NoCode tool within your organization, it's important to provide training and support. Whether you're coming in like me as a consultant in automation and you're helping an organization, or whether you're implementing it within your organization yourself. And to do this, it's really important to take into account all of the stakeholders. Now, thinking about the people to train, it's not just going to be the managers of your teams, but also the teams themselves. What I tend to find is that stakeholders that are end users of products often don't get engaged with early enough within the process of digital transformation. So make sure you're engaging your whole team in any new platforms that they're using. Make sure they understand how they're impacting on customer experience and how they can work within your tools to make sure that that is having a positive effect on the customer experience. And then finally, we move on to impact evaluation. did it really make the difference that you were expecting it to make? Now, if you at the beginning took those baseline metrics and you then take them again after your implementation, you will be able to see the effect. But one thing to bear in mind is that you could only compare to data that you captured at the beginning. So if you really want to know the impact on anything that you implement within your organization, take metrics at the beginning, repeat, evaluate, and know if you've made a positive impact on your customer experience. And there are tools that you can use to do this. So for example, HubSpot allows you to have a Net Promoter survey that you can send out from the service suite in which people can mark you out of 10. Bear in mind, you're already really looking for 9 or 10s if it's looking at Net Promoter score. Anything below that, they're not going to be a Net Promoter. There are also tools which you can use in HubSpot to actually attribute revenue to referral. And if referral is something that you are really looking at, I want to increase the number of referrals that we get, because that's obviously a metric of us providing a great customer experience. You can do that by breaking down specific campaigns and attributing them to paid user accounts, or paid customer accounts, I should say. So these are the sorts of things that are possible when you implement a software that is focused not simply on automating, but automating by placing the customer experience at the center. And I want to leave you with this one quote from Maya Angelou. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did, but they will remember how you made them feel. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. There was so much in that just kind of, a bit of it felt like an attack sometimes of like the documentation things. That's me and the team of like firing up, automations and building things. And I'm like, I should probably write down stuff about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, time for Q&A?
Oh, yeah.
No, not escaping yet, I'm afraid. Don't worry, we've got quite a few coming in. So are you okay to answer
Yeah,
a few questions?
of course. I'd love questions.
Good, because I've got some.
Wonderful.
Got quite a lot. This also lands really closely with us, because we're community builders by trade in our day jobs,
Yeah.
and automating community onboarding and community experience is something you can only take to a certain extent, right? And I think there's a great question in here, which is, would you say that a successful automation is one where the customer doesn't realize it's being automated?
Always. Yeah. I mean, it's like that definition of marketing. Good marketing is only good marketing because no one realizes it's marketing. Seamless experiences are just things that feel good. And you don't know necessarily why they feel good as a customer. You just know that felt good. So yeah, if you can pick up that something's an automation, there are some things that I think are acceptable now in terms of automation. We know that newsletters, when we receive them as customers, are going to be automated. We don't expect that, somebody who's going to sit there and ping us an individualized newsletter every month. I mean, that would be completely unrealistic. But I think definitely things like looking at websites, for example, that have personalizations based on your interests. So for example, you see a different banner of a website landing page depending on what your preferences were stored in a CRM system. You wouldn't know if you saw a different landing page to me. We just know we saw the one that we wanted to.
Sure. And let's look at this slightly miserable question, but
Yeah.
Maybe let's look. So it says, what's the worst customer experience you've seen happen as a result of automation? Maybe not the worst, but one of the bad examples that you've seen.
Well, I can tell two here. I can tell you about an awful founder experience that I totally messed up because I did an automation wrong. And then I can tell you about maybe a customer experience as well.
Please.
So my founder experience was when I launched my first info product. It's called Freelance Notion. If anyone is interested, you can purchase it. It's a Notion product, and Francis actually helped me design it from Notion Bar. So it was a bit of a NoCode collab there. And following the launch of that product and the success that we had, I launched another product called How to Launch Profitable Notion Templates Using Notion. And Francis also is featured in that. And there's a few other people from the space who talked about how they made success using Notion. Now, what I hadn't realized is that originally I'd set up my automations so that when somebody purchased something from Gumroad, they automatically received freelance Notion. But I hadn't set the settings so that it was bespoke to a certain purchase, because I only had one product on Gumroad at that time. It was if user purchases product on Gumroad, send them freelance Notion. And I didn't document that anywhere specifically. And then I set up another product, and I put it on Gumroad, and then I set an automation of if someone purchases the ultimate guide to Notion templates, send them this template. What I hadn't done is I hadn't changed the freelance Notion one, so everyone who bought the ultimate guide to freelance Notion within the first week of launch also got for free my other product, which was a lot more expensive. Kindly, someone from the community wrote to me and told me that I had done that, which actually saved me from, losing all the possible upsells from that product. And of course, I gave it to all those keen people for free. But that's the kind of thing that can happen to you financially if you don't think about how you set up your automations. In terms of really poor experiences for customers, I mean, anyone who has experienced getting all of a sudden 3 or 4 emails from the same company over and over again, or someone else's name on an email that's directed to you, and it kind of feels like a really awkward, or just somebody who's built, the one thing I see really commonly is when organizations build workflows for maybe one product line, and then another, and then another, and then another. And they haven't really thought about the fact if someone has multiple interests, all of a sudden they're receiving 2 emails a day, every day, for like 4 weeks, if they happen to sign up at the same time. Really what should have happened is they should have said, if in this workflow, exit from that workflow, and then re-enroll following the exit from that one. So then the experience feels like kind of got some products, or you get bits from each workflow. So it still feels nice.
For sure. I was just thinking at the time, I don't know how many people use Monzo, but if you get a chunk of money and it says payday, woo, and a little celebration thing appears, like automatically, obviously. I once got that when I got like some insurance back for my dog because she'd been ill, and I was like, not quite the experience I was looking for, Monzo, but yeah, swing and a miss for that.
Actually, thinking about that, I recently got an automated Twitter response from, oh gosh, I can't remember which company, I won't name and shame. But they messaged me to say, I hope that we have solved your problem. How would you rate us out of 10? And I was like, why have they sent me this? It's really weird. And I realized I'd done a promotional post about them, talking about how wonderful their product was, and their help on social media had just replied saying, thank you for this. Well, their automation obviously been triggered that if this person responds to that person, ask them how we did service-wise. But contextually, it was irrelevant to me.
Yeah. So be wary of these things.
Yes, context is key.
We've just got time for one more question. I'm going to ask you to take this as a compliment, but also answer the question, please, because I think it will be useful. But someone has asked, how did you get so good at public speaking? I need to learn, right?
Was this your question?
No, it's coming from someone out here, but I should have asked
Okay, right. I also have a confession to make. I went to drama school as a kid. So potentially that might be it. Improv was a big part of like my growing up, but I also want to let you know I still feel so nervous every time I go up on stage, but you're kind of taught as a young age to turn nerves into smiles and projection, but it doesn't mean that inside, before we go on stage, we still feel sick to our stomachs. Okay, then that feeling never goes away.
Well, it doesn't come through at all. But yeah, thank you so much. Like, I'm going to be implementing so much of this with how we do things in Codebase, and really appreciate you sharing. Like, I think no-code automation is huge. It's just another big part of the movement that we all need to figure out how we can kind of make work for us. And Niall was saying, maybe get paid for, right?
Yeah. And before I go, I want to say, please do reach out to me on DMs on Twitter. I just love connecting with people in general. Like if you have a question related to marketing, sales, automation, HubSpot, customer experience, like come talk to me. I'm all ears.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give me one more round of applause.